John Rhys Edens was born to controversy. His birth took place during World War II in Saxmundham, Suffolk, England, to a piano-playing mother and a Royal Air Force pilot. As if being born into a world war wasn't enough, John's grandfather had the marriage between John's father and mother annulled 2 weeks after John was born, so John never knew his father. His mother was a professional pianist, performing extensively throughout England, and when she was home, she'd play Moonlight Sonata or Clair de Lune for a young John to help put him to sleep. His grandmother gave him a wind-up Victrola for the bomb shelter in their basement, and John remembers hearing the sounds of bombs detonating around him while listening to Spike Jones records. The premise of music being his comforter was cast early. Around the summer of 1947, John's mother had fallen in love with a Greek-American pilot and married him. Just shy of his 6th birthday, he was loaded into a plane with his mother and new stepfather, bound for the United States in a town called Cordele, Georgia. John often felt lonely while growing up. One day at age 13, while reading a comic book, he saw an advertisement that guaranteed instant popularity. Learn how to play guitar with Mel Bay. He sent away for the course, and with money he had saved, bought a guitar and learned how to play. Sure enough, he became popular, performing in clubs, coffee shops, and parties. John found once again the refuge in music that he had once found ducking bombs in England. John attempted 2 years of college, but the lure of music was way too great. The defining moment came when, while performing behind Brenda Lee at the Gator Bowl in 1959, John decided to commit himself completely to music. Moving to Atlanta, he became an engineer at a place called NRC Studios in Buckhead, Georgia. Working alongside the likes of Ray Stevens and Tommy Rowe, John was engineering for everyone, from such soulful acts as A Young Gladys Knight to pep song recordings by the KKK, while learning all the skills of writing, producing, recording, mastering, and pressing songs. John's first name on the record as producer was for artist Mike Shapiro, with whom he did Harlem Nocturne and I'm Coming Home Baby for Savoy Records. Even though John had many highlights as an engineer, writer, and producer, he wasn't making much of a living. So when Joe Galkin, one of the all-time great record promoters, offered to hire him as a promotion man for $65 a week and 4 cents a mile, well, John couldn't refuse. He hit the road, visiting every radio station in Georgia. In 1963, while promoting a Golden World record, John met up with a guy named Al Rosner, who spirited him out to Detroit to promote records for Merit Music. While in Detroit, he joined forces with Edwin Starr, engineering for his records and collaborating with him in producing other artists, including a group known as the Shades of Blue. From this experience, John learned that the real clean money from the industry came from publishing. From 1964 until 1966, John worked for Harry Balk at Impact Records, then went on to work for Capitol Records as an independent producer, where he signed and produced a group called The Pack, which later became known as Grand Funk Railroad. He also produced a group called Rastas for Capitol, and in 1967, he produced Scott Richard Case and the band SRC. He and a partner, Pete Andrews, along with the SRC Corporation, produced Saugatuck Live, a series of outdoor concerts renting 80 acres, which featured local bands such as Bob Seger, Ted Nugent, and the MC5. In 1971, he decided to try his hand on the West Coast. Settling in Los Angeles, John met up with John Brahaney, the founder of the Songwriter Showcase, and the two became roommates from 1971 through 1976. In 1975, John started a new publishing company called Hollywood All-Star Music, and also bought a recording studio called Hollywood Central, which was originally the radio room where Radio Mystery Hour's The Shadow was recorded. It was also around that time that he began working with everyone, from Warren Zevon to Al Franken and Tom Davis to Robert Goulet to George Burns. He was engineering for everyone, from Brenda Russell to the Runaways, and the demand for his skills and abilities continued to increase. Moving into his own place at the Yamashiro Apartments in 1977, he met a young songwriter by the name of Amanda McBroom, who had left a note on his car saying she'd heard he was a producer. He signed her to Hollywood All-Star Music. John predicted that Amanda would end up writing the song one day, and sure enough, 6 months later she did. The Rose went on to become one of the biggest hits of all time. Unfortunately, conflict arose over the publishing between Amanda's record company and John, and the ensuing 7.5 years of litigation almost bankrupted John before a settlement was reached. Meanwhile, John branched out overseas from Japan to Europe. While in Japan, John produced 4 #1 LPs and 3 #1 singles for the Japanese pop star Shiharu Matsuyama, as well as other artists and a ton of commercials. He also recorded and released numerous songs throughout Europe, including Time Will Pass You By, performed by Toby Legend, which he co-wrote and which became a huge hit in Europe. He still owned and worked out of Hollywood Central when back in California, managing to land 400 commercials for NBC, as well as being an audio producer for numerous other TV productions and commercials. It was during this time that John married his true love, Lori, and the union produced 2 children, son Brian and daughter Robin. Taking time off to relax from the business side of music, John spent a number of years just writing songs until Cashbox magazine's editor, Michael Martinez, gave John his own page to write about the blues, which John did for 3 years for Cashbox. This led to the next giant leap, Blue Power. Taking his expertise in the blues to the internet, John once again was a first, only this time in pioneering web radio with his show. BluePower.com is the definitive information source of the blues, with interviews ranging all the way from B.B. King to Ike Turner, and it continues to be John's primary focus these days. Ever hear the expression that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree? Well, in 1991, John discovered much to his joy that he had another son, but from a prior relationship. Not only that, his son is David Schools of Widespread Panic, and the two now enjoy the bond of music as well as kinship. From birth to the present, from bomb shelters to bombshells in life, music is, and has always been, John Rhys Eden's very best friend.
This is B.B. King, and you're tuned to Blue Power, Internet's home of the blues.